Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for December 9th through 12th, 2022. Well, we're just coming off of a very powerful Gemini full moon where the sun was opposite Mars and the Mars was conjunct the full moon. Very powerful to watch that. If you could see in your time zone, the Mars dip behind the moon and then reappear in that powerful Mars moon conjunction 20 minutes away, 12 minutes away or so from that full moon. So, this Mars moon activation is really powerful, and we're still feeling it actually because the sun is still in opposition to Mars today. And so, we're feeling the end of this, and it's just like frustration with the sun opposite Mars. It's feeling, and Mars retrograde in Gemini, incredible frustration brewing around where we've allowed our voice to be suppressed. For supernova souls, it's been over lifetimes. And there is this energy brewing as we are in this massive energy of anticipation of what's to come, with Jupiter getting ready to move back over into Aries on the solstice. So the we have been having mutable square, mutable T square, and the mutable squares have this feeling of squares in general are like you can't keep going the way you're going, and you've got to make a big change, and it's not a little adjustment, it's a big adjustment. And mutable signs, the signs of adjusting. So we're making massive adjustments, and with the sun so involved, it's talking about who we think we are and our personality constructs and versus our true self. Indeed, we've been like this Mars retrograde has been like a war within, with our false personality constructs and our true identity, our true spiritual identity that's been so suppressed. We've even forgotten um, who we are, but we can tell something's missing, you know? And it's just this feeling is brewing and brewing inside. Now, Mars will not turn retrograde until January 12th. And we're moving into a Mercury retrograde. So we've got some time here to rehash this before we really shoot off into that new direction. But it's all about this massive adjustment around who we think we are and who we really are, who we thought we are. So it seems that the constructs of this world and our patterns through past lives and the programming for supernova souls. Um, One of the things, especially with this Neptune and Pisces era, and Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and it's speaking to the Piscean age. And how do we get out of that age? How do we complete and release those stories? It's a picture as this Jupiter prepares to move over into the sign of Aries and a landing home of this divine ideal timeline, anchoring in, and at the same time inviting this incarnation of your bigger, more true self. So that means that you got to make room for that. And so we've all been, this astrology for the last couple of months has been about coming up against these false personality constructs. Now, an example would be from daily life where, say, you have a condition like a physical condition or a situation, and we've all had had this feeling come up where some, and this is a huge message coming through for supernova souls. We've been waiting it. We've been in this position, rehashing trauma, rehashing the all that's held us back in the last age, and this feeling of waiting for the next tragedy. And this is programmed into our DNA, and it's created a situation where we're more comfortable with our issues and problems than we are with our freedom from those issues and problems. We have become attached. It's like, who are you without your problem and issue? And this is what this astrology is bringing up for us right now. So the sun in square to Neptune, or I'm sorry, the sun is opposite of Mars right now. We'll be feeling that through the weekend. And then we're going to start to feel the sun come into a square with Neptune. Now, this will be our last major mutable square and very powerful because it's exactly what we're talking about. So, this is going to be happening on the 15th next week, exact, and we'll be feeling it from this weekend through the whole week. And it's very powerful because we are speaking to how do we get this part of ourselves that's attached to those old stories, that we've literally become those old stories. Well, this is how it is for me. And this is what always happens. And of course, I should just expect that. And it's like, no, we are rearranging, but we're dipping back into that energy. And it's been so intense for especially for supernova souls, with this Jupiter lingering at 28 and now 29 degrees. For the last couple of months, Jupiter in Pisces and just hanging out at 10 degrees, these excruciating degrees that are about death and rebirth as we come to that Aries point. So now that Jupiter's direct, we're actually feeling that more. And we just had Mercury square up with Jupiter and moving. Now Mercury's in Capricorn. Now Venus today is exactly square Jupiter. So we've got this bloom of these mutable squares really bringing up all of the deepest, darkest feelings and frustrations that have been triggered by this Mars retrograde, by the loss of our voice, the loss of our expression to the point where we don't even know who we are. And of course, if you don't know who you are. So if you're going through this ego death experience and you're kind of realizing that you've been attached to these old stories, um, then there's this very uncomfortable place where you're like, wait a minute, can I change this? Do I have to dictate by the old truths and the old programming and the stories that have been instilled into you rather than who you really are? And but inevitably in this process, it's important to talk about this ego death experience where it feels like you're being shattered or ripped apart. Like everything you thought you knew and all that gave you, because the deal with our constructs and these way it's always been and the way it's worked for you and what you've had to deal with, um, they are they become this identification where we're like, oh, this is now who I am. This defines me. Now, this is so important. This is maybe what this whole astrology is about. It's like, okay, supernova souls, you're a rock star because you went through hell, and especially if you incarnated as a healer, light worker in the Piscean age. But that's shit happened to you, yes, and it's real, and we got to heal it. But it isn't who you are. It doesn't define you. We've got to stop letting our experiences define us because there's a huge agenda to block and control spiritual ascension, right? And you're here to be on the cutting edge. So no wonder you've been so thwarted at every turn. And we're feeling this frustration. And that frustration, that righteous anger, this Mars retrograde is actually really powerful because it's like, no, I don't belong. Don't put baby in the corner. That's not my place in this world anymore. And it never was. I just visited there so that I could be the powerful soul that I came here to be without any attachments, right? But those deep traumatic experiences that we went through, the part of the programming and the agenda behind that whole trauma energy is to keep us creating trauma, to keep us addicted to trauma. We're literally addicted. And that's these old personality constructs that are falling away. And so we have to re identify. And how do you re identify when everything you thought you were is falling away, even if it's something that you didn't want to identify with? But we have to recognize that place when we grasp on, because the constructs of our personality give us a feeling of security. It's a false sense of security, but it's the only thing that's gotten us through. We just have to be gentle and compassionate with ourselves as we go through this process because nothing can stop it. And Jupiter's going to go over into Aries and Pluto's going to go make it into to um, into Aquarius, and Neptune will leave Pisces and go to Aries. It's all going to happen. And it's powerful because now that Pluto's direct, Pluto is heading into Aquarius. It's going to be a couple of years of Pluto dancing on the edge of the Capricorn Aquarius axis. And we are feeling these issues come up everywhere because Pluto and Capricorn is about external authority, restraining our personal power. uh, Pluto in Aquarius is about the power of the people and the power that's in the people. And that's what we're about, supernova souls. We've been already experienced higher evolutionary states on this planet in this evolution. And yet we're just so plagued with fear over approaching the next threshold of freedom. And for lifetime supernova souls, we've been going to that threshold of freedom, just about to claim back our personal power, our light body, our autonomy as spiritual beings, and then bam, we get knocked down again. Well, no wonder we've identified with these stories. And then it's like a mobilization. Why even bother if you're just going to get knocked down? And then the feelings of shame and failure at getting off of your true spiritual path. But we're coming to the end of this. And we've got to be open to these new messages coming in around how quickly things can change for the better. And being in that energy, we don't get out of the Piscean age without the miracles. And what does that mean in your life? Miracles are available right now in such a profound way around health and healing and our personal power, our energy. Everything is about taking back our energy in our body. So we've had this last month, we had Mercury and Venus and the Sun all come into a trine with Chiron, bringing this energy to the surface. Chiron in Aries is our deepest wounds. Chiron represents our deepest wounds. In Aries, it's about where we gave over our life force, power in our own body to the agenda in order to survive, right? Aries has this like life or death energy. And this is kind of a place we're coming to. Jupiter is going to cruise through Aries and move out of Aries in May and into the sign Taurus. So this very concentrated time of Jupiter in Aries, starting on December 1st, but Jupiter doesn't come out of retrograde shadow until mid-February. And so that's also when Mercury will be coming out of retrograde shadow. And so that's really when we're going to start to feel, and then Mars will be direct as of January 12th. So again, we have these incremental, like increase pushes, incredibly powerful feeling of ready to move and own your life and take back your power and your autonomy and your path, as with Jupiter in Aries. So you really want to pay attention to this next 6 months. The first couple of months, we're getting oriented. Jupiter's coming out of retrograde shadow. But we want to be ready to roll with some stuff that maybe has been brewing inside of us for lifetimes and has not found expression. Mars comes out of retrograde shadow on March 15th, the Ides of March, very powerful energy there. So right now, though, we're still in the mutable squares. We're still confused about who we are. We can feel that there's a massive adjustment that needs to be made. And yet it feels like if we make any move or let go of anything, we'll be just completely lost and alone and empty and floating out there in space all alone. So we're trying to get oriented into this new personality, or our true spiritual, our we're remembering. We had this message about the Mars retrograde. It's about remembering and reinitiating into our true spiritual self, our true spiritual power. One of the things that's come through again and again recently around supernova souls is that that gift or skill that you've developed, we have lots of them. Supernova souls, so talented and brilliant. You're amazing. We have all these certificates on the wall and things we've done and all that, right? But the thing you really want to work with, and what you came here to work with, and your most profound gift, and skill, is typically the most hidden. So maybe that's why supernova souls have been feeling so lost. Like, all right, let go, let go, let go. But then what's going to catch me? And I'm free floating, and I seem to be the only one, and nobody around me even notices this shit. So it's been a very lonely and intense time because on the one hand, we're waking up to who we really are. On the other hand, it's like, oh no, you don't. And we're finding the strength within ourselves to claim back our power. So this energy of Mars opposite the sun is facing where we've lost who we are when we gave away our voice over lifetimes. Then the sun coming into that square with Neptune, our true spiritual identity, we got to claim it back under the rubble of all the trauma and drama, the Piscean age, and face maybe this whole energy right now of Jupiter at the end degrees of Pisces is like facing where we have gotten addicted and attached to the traumas. Like literally feedback mechanism in our physical body. It's like only can exist in trauma. This is really important because our glandular system is under attack with the electromagnetic frequencies, with the nanotechnology. And our glandular system is so important because it is the mediator between our energy body, which they don't even want us to know we have, and there's no education or acknowledgement of it, but it's way more real and powerful than our physical body, right? But we're really working in wholeness here and trying to get to wholeness. And so the glandular system is the communication between our energy body and our physical body. Now, our glandular system and our uh, stress response system is all disordered and all clogged up. And it's that loop where if it's like you're only comfortable when you're in trauma or tragedy. And if you notice, animals, have this very quick response to any threat, right? They have to, it's survival. And we have this as well too. But our reptilian brain, our amygdala is like programmed to keep us in that trauma state. Where if you watch animals, once they recognize the threat is not a threat or the threat is gone, they reset back into their peace. And we don't have this. And maybe this is all this rearranging is about. How do we reset back into peace? This is the energy of this season um, in the Northern Hemisphere. And we're, peaceful, serene, going within, finding our inner light and reemerging in our power and our wholeness. And gosh, it's like playing out so intensely this year. So, Mercury and Venus, Venus is still in an exact square with Jupiter today, and we'll just feel that for the next couple of days. And this is also bringing up deep insecurities and frustration around where we haven't been able to fulfill our spiritual purpose. Because Venus just went over the galactic center, now in an exact square with Jupiter. So it's like, what's in the way of the feminine destiny? What's in the way of this shift of perspective that can get us back on that horse? This is all that really matters. You can stack up all the problems and issues in your life, supernova soul. But the main issue is that you don't feel like you're living your potential, which means you're dying inside. And it's gone on for long enough. And the whole world just needs our potential expressed. It's such a beautiful gift. So why are we holding back? And here we go again with the fear programming, the trauma responses, the all that keeps us in that addictive state of replaying the old stories again and again. Can we get comfortable with peace and non-issues? And it's interesting because the astrology we have had, just to point out, for the last 5, 6 months, and really intense the last 3 months, just square after square after square. We had the Saturn Uranus square and then mutable squares, just one after the other, as we've had Mars square Neptune, and now our personal planets coming into opposition with Mars and square Neptune. And this is the very end of this. So the astrology is really interesting how the patterns play out because each planet has its own cycle, right? And then the drama is as those planets interact with each other. And we've just been having like, blah, 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 can't go this way. Oh, 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 oh. And there's something happening, a little widening out between the transits over this next few weeks. And it's giving us that place to prepare the manger and to learn to rest again, reset our nervous system, and prepare for the birth of this bigger spiritual self. Because we've gotten this message that Jupiter, went into Aries last spring, retrograded back into Pisces, now at 29 degrees, getting ready to go back into Aries. That third and final time over this Aries point, 0 degrees Aries, the beginning of the zodiac. Such an important time, especially when we're talking about the Christ consciousness timeline, because the greatest conjunction, which is when Saturn and Jupiter come together in the sign of Pisces and Aries, the very end of the zodiac, the beginning of the zodiac, that was what made the Christmas star, and that the last shift of ages and announcing the birth of the king. Right. So Rudolf Steiner talks about the Christ event. We've totally misunderstood it. And we're just beginning to be able to understand what that was all about. And that Christ event, though, he talked about that what happened from that, which was actually huge groups of souls working on that project. And supernovas, you're probably one of them. You're at this shift of ages, you were at the last shift of ages, holding space for this um, transmutation of physical form into light body. And so when that happened with that one individual, all of these souls holding space and preparation for 100 years before, 100 years after, that shifted an energy in the earth, and the life force of earth was imbued with this Christ consciousness energy, which is basically Christ consciousness. The definition that's come to me is a palpable experience, personal experience of God consciousness right here available in our own life on earth. It also has to do with the middle way. And we are being so pulled in this duality right now. And the forces of losing your individuality into too far to in one direction, you completely lose your individuality. Too far the other direction, you become a robot and a transhuman agenda. The Christ consciousness is the middle way where we accept our consciousness, we own it as God consciousness. And we begin to pave our way in our individuality to creator and take our true role as co-creators. So this December 21st, it's really the 20th, 21st, where Jupiter moves back into Aries just before the solstice. And the solstice happens in the afternoon on December 21st in Mountain Time. And that's exciting because the Solstice Soul Group session, a group intuitive session for the solstice, I hope you can consider joining. We get to do that. It works out to be able to do it at the exact time of solstice in the afternoon in Mountain Time on December 21st. So look out for that. Information to sign up for that soul group session for the solstice is in the information box below. So then just the day after the solstice or day and a half after the solstice, we've got a Capricorn new moon, 1 degree, 33 minutes. It's a brand new start. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, so it's about starting something new. And at 1 degree, it's brand new. These are new structures of authority. But isn't it interesting? It's at 1 degree, 33 minutes. And 33 has been such a number associated with power and control. So we're trying to break free of the external control and take our power back that is available in our own body. And everything is about this. For supernova souls, it means landing home your bigger spiritual self. So this period of time is about preparing to receive. Just like the story of baby Jesus, and even though he wasn't really born this time of year and yada, 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 but if we look at the pattern of the sun through the seasons, we can feel into this energy. And so we're rebirthing into our cosmic consciousness, our Christ consciousness self. And that's maybe why we've had all this mutable energy and squares and conflict around the conflict within, with that false personality programmed mind, hive mind that seeps in and we think it's who we are versus our true spiritual self that's in alignment with creation, Christ consciousness, and in alignment with the divine ideal timeline. So this Jupiter crossing over the Aries point is like, well, the picture we've gotten is it anchoring in. It's like the next evolutionary step of this Christ consciousness timeline. It was an etheric energy in the earth. Now we're anchoring it into the earth. And at the same time, or parallel, or maybe it's the same thing, the supernova souls landing home into their body and their bigger self, like literally incarnating, being reborn into who you really are. So know that this intense dark night of the soul, it looks like, seems like supernova souls are going, have been in this dark place, that separation place, that loneliness, that emptiness, and then boom, back into the light and wow, and the miracles and the revelation. So just know that we're right here dancing at the edge. And then it's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, where am I attached and addicted to those old stories? And like, it's this vision of a coat, a big cloak that you've been wearing. It's been hiding you in your light. You've been using it to try to keep you safe through the Piscean age. And it's layers and layers of like everybody, who you needed to be for other people, and then how you dealt with, compensated, and um, all the roles you've played. And it's getting really, really heavy because it's not who you are, you know? And it corresponds, even though it's a macrocosm thing through your whole evolution and lifetimes, but it corresponds with whether or not we can drop the drama. So feel into this heavy coat. What is it? What are the layers? What are you holding on to protect you when you know that your light is its own protection once you break through this threshold place? And so, literally, for the solstice, we're dropping that old clothes, all of the things, all the roles we played. Because going back to the agenda behind this trauma and drama, it's like what I've seen is that when you, especially if you're on your path and you're experiencing something powerful in a past life, like really pursuing your dream and your vision or whatever your mission is in that lifetime. Um, and then to be thwarted, killed, punished, exiled at that moment, it creates this, literally, the picture that I see is like a voodoo doll, and then the clothes, like a clothing is pinned on to the doll, right? And this is like our false personality constructs, but we've been, um, these programs, because of how we died and what we were doing when we died and how we were attacked. It's like the soul wants to come right back to earth and get to work on what you were doing, right? But that personality, every single lifetime we get a new cloak, a new coat. This is our sun sign. It's like, how are we, what's the role we're playing in this lifetime? We don't, that's not who we really are. And so what happens in those traumatic experiences where you were just about to attain or achieve something and then knocked down is that that personality construct is now attached through the layers of your aura, pinned into your psyche. And then in this life, you have a parallel situation trying to solve and fix and complete what you weren't able to do there, but you're not in the same body. You're not in the same role. You're not in the same. And this is where you can see how easy it is to get attached to these constructs and think that that's who you are, you know? And we are just having to completely undo this. And these mutable transits are like a whirling dervish in our field. And maybe we can see that chaos energy as building and gaining momentum so that those constructs can just centripetal force, with centripetal force, just leave our field. And so be present with what's happening. Don't miss it. Don't be like, oh, and I get through this, because it's time to get through it for good and to just be really present with this. So um, we are having a big shift of energy because we've got Mercury just already in Capricorn, Venus now in this exact square with Jupiter moving into Capricorn this weekend. And that is going to bring this more focused energy, grounded energy, kind of like, okay, now what do we do? Now it's time to get to work. Now we take step by step. We can see a vision. We're dropping that old shit. And it's time to get to work on the new structures that can catch us in this new paradigm. And that's not clear necessarily because we're still in mutable square land, but you can feel that it's time to move again. And it's so refreshing. And it's kind of like those practical steps. Capricorn's the mountain goat. And it's just like, hey, guess what? You're on the mountain. You can see you're going somewhere. Don't worry about what it looks like and exactly where you're going. Just put one foot in front of the other and be where you're at. And so that's going to be a shift of energy. And then the other shift of energy we're feeling is that Mercury is going into retrograde shadow. And so Mercury during this retrograde, Mercury is in Capricorn, will turn retrograde on the 29th of December at 24 degrees back to 8 degrees. This 8-degree thing in all these retrogrades is very powerful. Jupiter turned retrograde at 8 degrees. The last Mercury retrograde started at 8 degrees Libra. Now Mercury's going to retrograde back to 8 degrees. And also Mars is retrograding back to 8 degrees. 8 is a number of transformation. And so it's the number of Scorpio, and it's about transforming our relationship to our power and empowerment. And so this Mars retrograde in Capricorn is very powerful. Now, excuse me, Mercury. Mercury turns retrograde at 24 degrees just before reaching Pluto at 26 degrees, or Pluto's going to be moving to 27. Yeah, so Pluto will be at 27 degrees. So it's really interesting because Mercury makes it within the conjunction, a 3-degree energy of Pluto, and then turns retrograde. It's like, oh no, I'm not facing this one right now. And it's not until, I think this is a very significant date, that it's not until, so Pluto turns direct on January 19th, and excuse me, Mercury turns direct on January 19th, comes out of shadow on February 7th, and then comes into that conjunction with Pluto, finally meets up with Pluto, right? And this is like our perception and our conception around our mental slavery and where we've given our power away and allowed our own consciousness to be used to create the matrix. And when Mercury comes back to Pluto, it's like a face off. There's so much energy to this. And that's February 10th at 28 degrees. And Pluto is then getting ready to move into Aquarius in March. It'll only dip into Aquarius this time, but still, it's a massive game changer. And it says, hey, we're not going to stay in Capricorn forever with our power enslaved. Um, this period of time has been about, it's been since 2008. That's when Pluto moved into Capricorn, which was a financial crash and very intense time. And so Pluto moving into Aquarius is about financial reset of maybe perhaps we are clearing all of where we've given our power away. And in order to completely clean that up, we've got to change our whole financial system so that we're no longer in financial tyranny. And but Pluto is going to be on the edge of Capricorn Aquarius for the next couple of years, not fully moving in to Aquarius for good until November 19th, 2024. And so the next couple of years are all about this dance between power outside of us and the power within us, the power of the banking system, slavery, financial slavery system, and our own internal personal power and the power of the people. And you can just feel this energy coming to the surface. So that shift, Mars or Mercury going into retrograde shadow and a Capricorn retrograde, it's like, all right, it's about going back and systematically going, maybe we got to go back down the mountain to make sure that we didn't miss any crumbs. But we know we're still going to make it up the mountain. And one of the main energies of this Mercury retrograde cycle, which again lasts until it turns direct on the 19th of January, um, is that Mercury will make 3 squares with Chiron in Aries. And so the first square with Chiron is um, coming up here on the 15th of December. That's the same day that the sun is in square to Neptune, our very last mutable square for a while. And this complete rearranging of our personality and who we think we are, according to the Piscean age and according to the mystical, magical impulses of the Piscean age that we must reclaim. And then do we reclaim those as by supernova souls coming into their full expression? Are you the miracle? I know it's hard to imagine that because you're stuck under that heavy cloak of bullshit and stories and low self-worth and failure and shame, and all of that's got to go. So this is what this is about. So the middle of the month, next week, Thursday, is going to be a very kind of pinnacle moment with the sun in square to Neptune, finishing out this whole mutable story, and Mercury in that very first square with Chiron. 3 more squares with Chiron, saying that now this Mercury, this Capricorn Aries thing is really important because as Jupiter moves over into the sign of Aries, it happens on the solstice, which means the sun will be moving over into the sign of Capricorn. They make an exact square at 0 degrees. It's like stuck in between the old you and the new you. It's everything. And it's just like, no, you're going to break apart if you still try to keep that old bullshit rolling as you move into the new. Gotta drop it. And it's so intense because and so we've got Mercury in Capricorn making 3 squares to Chiron in Aries, and then the sun at 0 degrees in square to Jupiter at 0 degrees Aries, 0 degrees Capricorn. So much important energy is here around Capricorn and Aries, cardinal signs. Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's make some shit happen. Come on, the fire. And then Capricorn is the laws and the rules of our world and the structures of authority. And so the sun sitting there at 0 degrees, it's like we've got to change the laws and rules around our identity. And in order to claim back full experience of living. The deal is that people don't understand is that we don't have any middle ground here. It's transhumanism robotville or it's full expression of our power. We have no middle ground. And so prepare yourself for this. You've already made this choice. You don't get to choose to be a robot supernova soul. You've already done that in previous evolution. Now you've got to stand up and in just this righteous, exalted power, pure spiritual power in absolute alignment with the divine timeline. This is the sun square Jupiter moving into Aries. It's like, oh, we're anchoring in the divine timeline. What the hell are you doing here? Are you in the Piscean age or are you coming back home? And indeed, that's what's happening. So prepare that manger and that beautiful place to land. Get organized, do this inner work, drop it all, notice where you're attached to the bullshit, and just stop playing. It's we're coming back into part of the trauma energy of the Piscean age and what we've experienced. We know that the trauma response and this loop that's happening in our physical body that we can heal. Um, but it's this energy of replaying those old stories and then that attachment and where we have been content to play a role that's not who we are. And any of the false constructs and stories and anything we're attached to from the past can't come with us over the sleep. And so this is all these mutable squares. So right at the middle of the month next week, powerful with the Sun square Neptune. Who are you in the Piscean age and who are you really? And then are you going to drop it? Are you going to be who you really are? Or are you going to play a whole bunch of games to make everybody else happy for a while longer? And that's the tension and the energy of that. The sun at 0 degrees Capricorn and square to Jupiter at 0 degrees Aries. Now, that square comes off on Christmas Day. And so, a beautiful Christmas energy because it's like this tension. And it's like we're going through a portal. It's such a great time to come together for that soul group session because it's like we're going through a portal and it's like squeezing narrow, but you can see the light, and it's like you can't take the baggage and that heavy cloak of who you've been with you. And so it's like, oh, got to drop it all. And so this is so powerful to have this experience of these mutable squares and this rearranging and the dropping of the old stories and waking up to a new self and a new timeline, a new reality, new possibilities with every breath. And so it's giving us this opportunity to do this. And ultimately, we've got to take back our power fully and completely um, in order to get anywhere. So, no middle ground. And that's what this astrology, we're moving into extremes. We've been in mutable land, like, oh, I don't know what's going on, back and forth and around and round. And now it's like directed, you know, and get your shit together. Capricorn is like, come on, let's get organized, And it's about, again, finding our role and getting to work on building the new structures that can catch humanity in this transition. Now, one of the main energies we're feeling, and pretty much for the rest of December, is this Black Moon Lilith in Cancer in exact opposition to Pluto. They'll be exactly opposite until the 20th of December, right up to that solstice time. And they were together first at 26 or in opposition at 26 degrees, and now they're at 27 degrees. And this is as Pluto's getting out of the dark. Pluto's going, hey, I could go to Aquarius, a whole new energy, right? And but boom, this opposition. Now, Black Moon Lilith is associated with the deepest, darkest secrets, but particularly associated with our feminine side, where we feel persecuted and beaten down and um, cut into pieces um, and but the deep in Cancer, the illusion and delusion of separation. Capricorn and Pluto and Capricorn is about our power and false authority power structures, which way that's played out in the age of Pisces and through the religious programming is Father God. So we've got our mother issues and our father issues. Mother issues of like not feeling loved and held and safe and protected and or feel abandoned by our spiritual family and all alone. And how are we ever going to make it through and all that. And then we've got, did you do it good enough? Are you good enough? Did you do it right? Or did you prove yourself? You know, and so it's like the deepest shame and regret and energies of failure coming up on all sides. But it all has to do with the one thing of where we gave our power over, where we allowed our voice to be suppressed. And this is when we take it back. The external control we're seeing of tyrannical energies in our world with government control is a ramification, an expression of the truth that they don't have control over us psychically anymore. We're lightning. They're trying to, of course, but it's like energies are lightning and changing. And so now they're trying to infiltrate into our physical body in order to steal our energy and keep us in low vibrational states. The whole paradigm of this transhumanism is in reaction to enlightenment. And so it's happening and nothing can stop it. This is where, in this situation, we're being given a choice. And each soul individually has to choose whether they want to cycle again or whether they want to bump up into the next place. And we know where we're going, right? Um, and that's why we've gone through all of this. So are you ready to stand up and own it and claim it? You know? But this Black Moon Lilith opposite Pluto is bringing up the deepest, darkest feelings and that delusion of separation and telling us that we can't take that with us either. It's also an identity construct we become addicted to. And we know, I mean, science has actually proven to us we're fractals of God consciousness. There's no separation. And yet, why do we feel so alone? This is a psychic quarantine. And Mercury in Capricorn, the mind perspective, it's a retrograde in Capricorn, all about breaking free of the mind control, the conditioning. This has gone on for so long. We think mind control is kind of like a new thing. It's gone on for hundreds of years. It's not a new concept. And thousands of years, right? 'Cause and this is the final battle. It's where we take back our psyche and our mind and our body and our power, and nothing can ever dupe us again, right? So that's our autonomy. And that's when we go move over into the Aquarian age and say yes to the spiritual evolution. And so we're finding everywhere that we've been giving our power over through the personality constructs, through the stories, through the manipulations. Um, and interesting that the word of the year in the Merriam-Webster is gaslit. So here we are. We're coming out of this gaslighting and claiming back our psychic truth and connection, and that we're spiritual beings. And this is an amazing, powerful experience, and that living life, a body, consciousness, alive and aware of itself in a body is an ecstatic experience. That's what it should be. And we've gotten way dumbed down and way distracted. No more, because a change is coming. And yeah, it's going to be all over the place for the next couple of years, but we can feel that there's nothing that can stop it. And so we are ready to get this is all this Mars retrograde is that initiation, reinitiation, remembering, preparation for your role in the Aquarian age. And so here we are. So very powerful times. Know that it's really intense, but then we are kind of spacing out a little bit, having a little bit of breather, and be able to assimilate and adjust to all of these changes we've gone through these mutable squares, and find that power within to be completely present for this experience, for this Christ consciousness embodiment happening not just in one being this time, but in thousands. And supernova souls, you're here to lead the way in this. You've already done it and you already know exactly what you're doing. Doesn't mean that it doesn't feel unknown and scary as we grapple through the dark to find that spot of light. But um, we know it's what we came for and we're so close. So just be present, don't run away, and love yourself through this. That's the best way to prepare that manger in this place to receive this bigger self. This is a message that's come through from the very beginning of the story of the supernova soul back in 2015, coming through individual sessions with supernova souls. And one of the main things that came forward is that you're not really here. There's been a placeholder holding a spot in your body, in your life. It's you, it's a part of you, but there's so much more to you that for various reasons could not fully incarnate at the time that you were born. the energies on earth, the karmic situations with your parents, just that the time wasn't right. And so this bigger self, we don't even know really what that means or who we really are. And it's waiting in the wings, ready to be born, landing, landing home, baby Jesus in all of us. It's so exciting and it's so beautiful. And so that takes a clean slate and a preparation. And that's what this time is all about. So thank you so much for being with me and following this a supernova story and being present. It means so much to me and to your other supernova soul brothers and sisters. We are doing it and it's happening. And I'm so glad we're here together. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.